Live. Hello, everyone.
Podcast on a Wednesday.
Andrew's still getting set up. And yes, this is a Wednesday, not a Thursday, just in case.
Is this legal?
Hello, everyone.
Podcast.
So, we shuffled around some times for you, didn't we?
You made this work just for me, and it's very much appreciated.
So
And-
we're very, very pleased this week to have Felix on our podcast.
Good evening. Very pleased to be here.
We've tried to have him on before, but it didn't work out for us.
I take full responsibility for last time and all of the IT issues surrounding that, and I think my general presence was the issue. I think.
No, not at all. No. Those issues persisted for far longer than what it was with you. So, actually, this week is kind of the first week our platform's back to having the ability to put two mics through the same computer, which is kind of cool. So, we're back on board with that, which is great. Which means it's perfect timing.
Fabulous.
And we'll just wait for the text from Ruth though to make sure that that's like what we're going to say.
Don't want to speak too soon.
Yeah. We've also got Andrew tuning in on a Wednesday as well, which is
It's good, mate. It's good. It's tricky. I think when we first started doing this podcast, the world was kind of dead, so no one was really doing anything, so it was fine. And then, of course, as our lives kind of come back into play, obviously things change, but that's fine. So, mate, Felix, how have you been? We haven't caught up for a while.
It's been a while. I'm pretty good. I think we're just pottering along. Nothing too exciting to report. I'm trying really hard not to mention the weather because I hate weather hyperbole. But hey, it's been pretty good of recent. But
Mate, that's how we start every podcast off. We need to discuss the
a
weather.
little weather chat, you know.
I know, it's great. Yeah. Maybe we should avoid that subtle hint.
you've been writing a bit more at the moment, so looking forward to.
Yes, certainly spending more time on two wheels as opposed to four. Just riding my bike a lot, kind of enjoying the weather, enjoying having the ability to kind of, and not to mention daylight savings, phenomenal. Just the fact that it's, what is it now in Adelaide, where you're like 7:45 and it's just getting dark, and that's only going to get better over the coming months, which is a delight.
They're all a pack of arseholes.
What's your company? What's opposite of summer?
Winter, that guy.
Yeah. Anyway, carry on. She's going to be a long winter.
We've had someone comment saying, "Hang on, you guys are early bloody daylight savings."
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
The problem, it becomes a dynamic relationship because we have an obviously audience on the East Coast. You're in Adelaide, I'm in the UK, so we're kind of balancing 3 time zones with doing all this, and sometimes I get the math wrong. I apologise.
Hey,
anyway,
where you can watch or listen whenever you like.
Yeah, we're just recording.
Such is technology.
And the internet and such.
Who wants to watch TV? TV wants you to watch TV. You watch TV when you want to watch TV.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
Except, are we turning into the ultimate hipsters though? There's like a thrill when you actually do turn the TV on and you catch like the start of a classic Simpsons episode, and you're like, I could just go onto Disney Plus and watch this anytime I want. But the fact that you happen to get it on the TV live, I don't know. It's like, oh, I'm going to watch this.
I can't do the ads anymore.
I
You pay for streaming services and stuff like that. And you just get not having to have ad breaks and TV viewing.
I like the nostalgia of ads. Occasionally you might find an old VHS in, underneath the TV at your parents' house or something like that, and it might have, I'll use an example of one I found not long ago, Drop Dead Fred, a copy of that, and it would have been recorded in like 94, 95, on the VHS, and as good as the film was, in fact, as phenomenal as the film was, the ads for Wendy's, Lubemobile, just all those like nostalgic childhood ads that came up, and just the outfits and all the and Sizzler and that kind of thing. I think that's half the fun. I don't know.
You didn't edit out the.
No.
Edit out the ads?
No.
Oh man,
No.
my parents were sitting there with
See,
a VHS remote clicker that would be like
Your VHS had a remote?
like
what?
That's
like
elite.
a plug-in one.
A pneumatic one?
Yeah, that's the best.
It's funny how the human brain works. I find a lot of the time I struggle to recall, things happening in today. But yeah, like you said, Felix, you'll watch an old tape from years ago and you'll remember the jingle. You'll sing along to the ad and you're like, I haven't seen this for 15 years. It's just embedded.
There's
embedded
another
down there
Rocker
somewhere.
Brothers.
Rocker
Rocker Brothers
Brothers.
ad. That was phenomenal. Yeah, that was really good.
Is that-
Yeah.
I think so. Probably SA and ACT or something like that. Some other kind of yeah, exactly.
They were the best. I remember when they got bought out super cheap and I just quiet.
Excuse that audio. It's
So yeah.
for everyone listening, this is some ASMR. Just some little glug 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 glug. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Closer to the speaker.
It's like a Fanta ad. Yeah.
Fanta.
So, Felix did a pretty cool thing for us in issue 3. If no one has seen it or hasn't got issue 3 yet, still can have it in our store, shipping worldwide.
There's not many left now. They must be nearly out.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close. Hey, we're getting very very close. So if people still want one, then you're gonna have to get on it pretty quick because they're not lasting very long at all, which is good to see. But yeah, Felix and Bryce went to Laukirbe Speedway, which is in there.
Gairdner. And I should know the reason why it's called Gairdner. I'm sure, obviously, someone's name, but the pronunciation apparently is Gairdner.
Gairdner.
Yeah.
Gairdner. So where is Lake Gairdner? Because this is an event that I know Luke is the same, and I've wanted to go for a lot of years. But it's a big commitment to get there. It's not just hey, we're going to go out to Speed Week. And you're looking at a week minimum to go. Where is it, and how do you get there?
The best way to describe it is it's kind of northwest of Adelaide. Google Maps momentarily.
Describe.
For audio only, it is so out of Adelaide. If you drive up to Port Augusta, which is I guess right at the top of the York. Air Peninsula. Google Maps. This geography is not my strong point. Basically, Port Augusta, right at the tippy top of the peninsula, which is roughly 400 odd k's, and then from that point on,
So we are.
here we go.
So that is Adelaide. Did I just say that? I should have said that.
No, don't say that.
Down the bottom there.
So-
and
So basically, 400 kilometre drive up or thereabouts up to Port Augusta, and then you pretty much drive a little bit further out of Port Augusta. You get to a town called Iron Knob. You can only imagine what that town's famous for. It's the first word, not the second word.
Send a tube of glue to Iron Knob. Speaking of old commercials.
Yeah. So once you get to Iron Knob, you quite literally turn right off of the asphalt and onto a dirt road where you travel for another 2 and a bit hours. And by dirt road, it's very dirty, very red, very dusty road, and you pretty much head west from there, further inland. 4 hours on asphalt, 2 hours in. And you basically arrive at what is known as Lake Gairdner, and you can see by the map.
this is a bit misleading because this should probably be satellite, so you can actually appreciate.
Yeah,
Red.
I wish there was a banana for scale to show you just the overall size of Lake Gairdner, but see that? Okay, see the little that kind of.
Where's the camera?
No, it's up to the top right. See where there's basically the long stretch of the biggest, straightest kind of bit is where they do the race. So where you see that little, almost like an island in the middle, the kind of that largest chunk. to describe that, you might see in some of the photographs. Yeah, at the top there. Actually, no, sorry, further, just at the right at the bottom where it says Google. I think that is where when you're there, it looks like the hills on the other side, but it's like an island in the middle.
Wow.
So it's
so for those on audio, we're looking at a sort of, what would you call, vaguely sort of rectangular, for want of a better term, shaped island, sort of, lake, and we're saying at the narrowest part. So the width of where that island is across is what? It is 10 times as tall? Is that fair to say?
You made all of that up. No,
I'm just going on scale.
It's hard to describe without photographs of the place, but basically, once again, poorly educated when it comes to geography, but the place is absolutely huge. So the actual the racing itself is using the smallest fraction of the actual lake itself. In fact, we did a dawn flight. I think the second or third day we were there. There might be some pics somewhere. We did a dawn flight. We basically were having a drink the night before, and we met these two young lads that were very enthusiastic and very jolly after a few drinks, and they introduced themselves as the pilots that were flying people in and out. And they said, "Oh, you should come up for a flight." Quite literally, just I was Kelly McGillis and Bryce was Maverick. But basically, these guys are like, "Oh, you should come up for a flight," and we didn't really think about it too much. And the night went on, and then we got down to the makeshift runway, which is essentially just another little strip of salt. And these guys were the same guys that were, I would describe as being fairly warm the night before after a few red tins. And these were the same guys that were taking us up in the sky at 7 o'clock in the morning, which was a bit interesting. But it was great fun. From the sky, it's only from the sky, or if not a satellite view, where you can really kind of comprehend how absolutely huge the place is. It's very good.
Look.
I'm not sure. I think we may have lost. May have lost Andrew. So the ghost of Felix's past has come back again. Are we still recording, Aaron?
See, we'll wait for Andrew to try and come back in. Right. We shall wait for Andrew to rejoin. He can come back in, maybe.
Hey!
Where did you lose us?
At the fastest of the place. But carry on, I'll pick up.
No, we kind of stopped anyway. Yeah, I'm trying to dig through.
Anyway, it's very big. That's it.
Vast.
You'll
Oh, here we go.
You'll notice the word vast is used.
Actually, there's a really good picture here.
Vast and salty are the two.
Here's an aerial shot. I think Bryce took this one as the pilot was giving. Bryce and I were both sitting on the same side of the aircraft at this point, and there was a lot of rudder happening to keep the airplane. It's plane. I think the kind of the colloquial name for the plane is an air caravan.
Is that the island?
You can see the island off in the middle. So that, to give you a sense of scale, that little picture of the island for those that can see, that is that little island in the middle. You can only just see how far away the edge of the lake is. What you can see in that photo is essentially a combination of the pits and also the kind of spectators. So they're all kind of lined up, and they're probably a good kilometre away from the actual racing. The actual racing's right.
Is that where that?
We can see it. Something
It's the timing shed,
Right.
and the racing goes in between those two.
Yeah.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, of the vehicles that are there. That's essentially the main spectator kind of area and pits. And then there's a whole other group, roughly the same size at the start end and at the finish end as well, which are helping cars start and helping cars finish.
That's incredible. Yeah. So as a spectator, what do you actually see? You see a car a kilometre off kind of in the distance and a big trail of dust or whatever
get going. Late Gairdner Speedway, explain what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Because we haven't really got into that. We kind of presume that.
What it is, as far as I'm aware, it's the only other event really like the Bonneville that everyone knows. So obviously Australia has this, or the US has Bonneville, has a big salt lake with not much on it. We have Lake Gairdner, and I presume there's a few others around the world, but I think we just happen to have the next best. The reason it's so popular is because Bonneville, like Lake Gairdner, is affected by tides. So certain times of the year, hence why they happen when they happen. And these people that have sunk millions of dollars or people that have sunk hundreds of thousands of dollars into an AU Falcon taxi to race on Salt Lake, or people that have done it with a postie bike, or then you've got people that have done it with a like multi-million-dollar truck or whatever they've developed. These people, you want to race your toy more often than once a year, or for like a week or two per year. So they bring, I guess, with those kind of budgets, they can justify bringing them down to Australia, which is at great cost and great difficulty, from what I gather, judging by the way these vehicles get into the I wouldn't call it facility, but how they get into Lake Gairdner in the first place. It's hard enough getting there in a car, let alone how they manage to move it.
Towing because when you think about just even Australia is, since we've sort of lived over here, you realize Australia is a very long way away from everywhere. That, even if you're just a person, so forget the fact that you've got a race car or tools and a team, like a person, it's 24 hours of travel time door to door to get from the UK to Australia. And then you think that you're going to get to Adelaide, and then you've still got that journey into the middle of the outback with your, 20-foot long racing car, the truck, your crew, the tools, and you don't live there. So it's not like you have a 4-wheel drive or you have a trailer and you have all this stuff there. Did the American teams ship their tow cars down, or do they kind of hire and borrow?
I think they hire and borrow and that kind of thing. So basically the event runs for a week or thereabouts, if not a little bit longer. So there's teams there from, I presume it's a month exercise for a lot of people, because obviously that's not including putting them on a ship or that flies or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the experience of getting to Adelaide, maybe doing a little bit of servicing or maintenance, or doing bits and pieces in Adelaide, then putting it on a truck. And nothing really gets towed there, kind of open truck or anything. It's all done in shipping containers, and I guess you do get the occasional vehicle that might be done on an open truck, but it's not as simple as just taking your car out to that kind of thing. So these people, I'd imagine, the time and effort that goes into it, they want to make sure they're the event, they're going to get full value. Once again, you prepare your car to take out to Mel after the day, and you throw a rod on the first lap, or you something to your coolant or whatever, and then you've just ruined a day. It's a bit annoying because you paid your entry and that kind of thing. You can only imagine.
Yeah.
You can only imagine shipping a jet turbine powered something rather across the world just to do that, and breaks, and you don't necessarily have parts. But there was stories about guys going back and forth to. My mic's being a pain.
It's swapped.
All right. I'm to Mike Tim now.
We can pass the mic.
But I'm sure there's guys that bring like little tiny lathe setups and all kinds of things like that. So there's like full workshops and I guess inside containers and that kind of thing that are there to be able to spin things up and do bits and pieces. So that's very cool. And these, so one part are kind of all of the things you never really think about when you go even as a spectator. I mean, you mentioned that the competitors have to be self-sufficient, but
the spectators have to be self-sufficient too. Like there's no cash machines and there's no, like supermarkets on the corner to get some milk. Like you need to be
you take in the kind of the rule is you take everything in, you take everything out kind of thing. It's, naturally as you do with camping and with your rubbish and that kind of thing. But you've got to make sure, it's obviously no FPOS, there's no 4G, there's no, despite the temptation to upload boomerangs to Instagram and all these great sunsets to be photographed, that kind of thing straight away. You can't do any of that. So you're, it's basically, runs off of cash, which is, I don't like at the end of the day, that's really not that no different to your local ethnic supermarket really, but it's a bit of a surprise when you realize like how much cash do I take? Am I going to drink $300 worth of beer in the next 3 days, or or how much beer do I take? Or
you sure as hell don't want to be 6 hours from the nearest drive-in and go like, oh crap, I'd like another beer. And you've got no cash.
But there was a guy, and he charged accordingly, because if there's one resource out there that is important, despite food and drink, is ice to keep said things fresh. And there was a guy driving around. He had like this clapped out old Ford Courier that I think had done a few trips between Port Augusta and Lake Gairdner in over the years, and not to mention lots of water in it, so the rust was pretty enough and salt. So the rust was a bit of an issue. And I can't remember how much they were. Bryce would be able to back me up on this, but I think it was about $10 a bag of ice. And
that's good value.
But I was gonna, you know what? It's incredibly good value when you're incredibly sunburnt on parts of your body that have never really seen the sun directly before. Ice to keep your food cool, and just ice to just generally, hold against yourself is quite a commodity.
Yeah. I love those moments where you're like, I know I'm getting fleeced, but I don't even care. This is good value.
Absolutely. There was even the food. You're paying. It was like they had like an all you can eat type situation, where it's just like basically a paper plate and a one of those forks that has a structural rigidity of a noodle, and it was basically all you can eat. And I think when they saw Bryce and I roll up to that counter, it was almost like on The Simpsons, where when
the sign says all you can eat.
Yeah, exactly. We had to justify
the man who had all he could eat.
And Bryce and I had our hands at full span on these plates, holding them to get maximum rigidity, and we were being tactical about what food we put at what pile on the plate to create the perfect pyramid. But I think it was like $25 for an all-you-can-eat plate, which wasn't the biggest plate, but they it was expensive. But also, you're that hungry, and that accompanied with beer, they can just charge whatever they want. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's going to a good cause. The people that put on the show and put on the food and that kind of thing, it's all pretty much it's small businesses, and they're doing a really good job.
And also the cost and time involved in getting cold beer and ice to the middle of a salt lake in outback South Australia is also not.
It's worth $10 a bag, I think.
So, I mean, one thing for me that really is fascinating about going to these events and doing 12-hour Bathurst 12-hour, or going to a rally or something like that, is always like, what's like a day typically like, when are you getting up? What do you do? Where do you go? Because there's not really anything to do but go see racing. So what was a typical day? Obviously you were shooting for us and trying to go around and see things and bits and pieces. But what did you do when you were there?
Yeah. So the first day we kind of arrived kind of midday to lunch. Just after lunch. And I guess one thing that is important before you have your day is trying to get a camping spot, or trying to get a good spot, because all the good spots are flat, with relatively soft earth to, put your tent pegs in, that kind of thing, and they disappear really, really quickly. So providing you have got a good camping spot, and your tent doesn't blow over in the middle of the night, and so on and so forth, the start of your day would begin with whipping up some kind of breakfast. So Bryce and I took the Weber and whipped up some pretty basic kind of food first thing in the morning. And the thing is, you wake up. In fact, I'll relate to one particular day, which was probably the biggest day we did, which was waking up to lightning at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, which was really, really, really close to the point where I think there was one point where Bryce and I were both levitating off the ground in fear. And we both kind of we're both in swags, and we both kind of simultaneously unzipped, looked at each other, and just immediately, almost simultaneously said, the gas bottle. So we reached over to the gas bottle, brought the gas bottle closer to us for some reason. I swear it hit the ground at the campsite somewhere. It was very scary. But that was survived the night. And that was the first time apparently that they've had basically a storm. So because it's so hot out there, it's 35 degrees. That's one of the first times they've had a decent storm. What that did though, because there was a lot of lightning, was put the timing equipment, which is done via big poles and lots of metal and lots of conductive materials, and put all the timing stuff out. So the first full day we had there, the racing didn't start till probably 1:30 in the afternoon. But that gave us a good opportunity to have a poke around in the pits basically, and have a bit of a look through. A lot of people, when going out there, which I think is kind of part of the fun, and my dad and my uncle and a few friends that have gone out there have always done this, which is they will find a campsite, park the car and all that kind of thing, and then they will take bikes out on the lake. So you're right out there on your bikes, which is good fun in theory. Bryce and I are lazy and didn't organize bikes, and we thought, we'll just wing it and we'll just walk out there. Turns out to get from the shore to the actual racing is quite far. But as long as you clean your car, you can drive out there. I think it was the pass, I think, was $40 or something for a couple of days. So you can basically drive out there and you can park on the side, and that means you keep your beer with you. I keep referring to beer, but that was important. But
it's basically all there is to do, right?
Yeah, and because we took a fair bit of camera gear out there and that kind of thing, it was handy having the car out there, and we had music, and we had an air conditioned car to turn over every now and then on Bryce's previous employer's dollar, which was good. So we spent a fair bit of time in the pits, and it gives you an opportunity. And I think the pits was my favorite part, as much as, and you asked before about the racing itself and what do you see and that kind of thing. You don't see much actual racing. You can go to the start line and watch these things take off. As you can imagine, they're so highly geared. You don't see much. You just see something kind of almost stuttering and idling off the line, and you hear it change up maybe 3 gears, and then you can't see it anymore. So the start line's just interesting to see these things kind of, sitting there idle, waiting for their opportunity to kind of go hell for leather. If you look at that photograph from before, you can see the actual racing itself is right, almost not on the horizon, but it's a good, say, kilometre away. So they come past, and you can kind of hear what's going really fast. It's more about the audible side of things, because it's a flat surface. You get a lot of
travel sound. So
and this and the bit that I really enjoyed was they'll go do their run, and they'll turn around at the end, and then they'll drive past the pits. So it's like a bit of a not a show pony kind of thing, but these cars would come back along and pull back into the pits, and you get to see this thing that's just gone, absolutely incredibly quick.
What speeds are we talking, out of interest? What are the top cars?
That's a good question, because I had forgotten those kind of figures, but it depends on the class and that kind of thing. But I think
ballpark, 400-500 k's an hour, or
he can bring up the results. I think there was one, and once again, it depends on the category and that kind of thing. But here we go. So there was one. Sorry, here we go. 200 mile an hour club. That is the thing. So that's a special club to be in. I think if you can crack the 200 mile an hour, that's the kind of that's the, what would you call it? That's the 1 minute 15 round mile hour kind of thing.
Yeah. Fast, you're moving. Yeah.
There you go.
309 mile per hour back pass, but was unable to back it up.
That's the record.
309.
That's just one example.
So
very
let's work
fast.
that out. It's 309 mph to just to get my conversion right, just for those. But yeah, so it's a whisker under 500 kilometers an hour, 497. So that's book.
That's not slow.
Booking. No.
And there was one in particular which I mentioned and wrote about, which was a lady by Eva Hackinson, a woman that lives in New Zealand, that's from Sweden, evidently. And I think at one point she held the record for the fastest woman on two wheels, and she's also still got the record for the fastest electric motorcycle.
Wow.
And did the same. I think she did the same record at the same attempt, and that was an impressive bit of equipment. You know, that was something that was not expected to go so quick, or they weren't expecting to crack anything that weekend. But and I think they did a 2:16. And I think they work it out over an average of 2 runs. I think that's how they do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite impressive.
That was just what a thing to experience and see. I think certainly from our perspective, you know, obviously we're very Adelaide based and very metropolitan based. You kind of forget that this actually happens in our state, and I don't know many people that have been to see it. It's a very niche sport.
It's very niche, and the people there are niche too. It's certainly not something that you kind of you just look at all the people there, and well, Bryce and I just didn't fit in. Basically, we just it's funny. All the people there are the most grassroots type of people, and I loved it. I think that those kind of things. It was almost like a mix between like a Ulysses Motorcycle Club meeting, or like a Vietnam vet kind of motorcycle meeting / country and western kind of shindig. It was just, I mean that with all due respect, it just was, these folks live and breathe Salt Lake racing, and that's kind of their thing. And we met a few kind of interesting folks that were from interstate. For example, there was in fact, I don't know if you've got that picture up at the moment, have you? Or that exact car there, the orange one. There was a team from Victoria that were running I don't know exactly what it's powered by, but this orange kind of
that is very cool.
situation.
That is a very cool thing. I like you, I know nothing about Salt Lake racing. I really don't know what I'm looking at, other than that it looks insane.
It was just a really interesting kind of car, and I actually made contact with the driver, which is a young girl. I think she's 25, 26. I think, who was like, they're kind of like, they're a bit of a popular team, and they were trying to get I was trying to get in touch with her just to kind of do a bit of a story with them, but I didn't get in touch, or didn't actually make contact in the end. Just they were busy with, getting their car set up and that kind of thing. But
trying to break a speed record and all.
yeah, exactly. That was a bit more of a professional team, so they all had shirts, and and they had a like a team truck and that kind of thing, and that was a really impressive looking. Kind of...
She actually commented on the Facebook page. Gemma Dunn.
Oh, there you go.
Wonderful. Well, if you're listening, that's a very impressive car. I don't know what I'm looking at, but it's very impressive.
Yeah, the driver's name was Gemma Dunn, and and sorry if you're listening, Gemma. I'm sorry if I'm doing you any disservice whatsoever by here we go. Land speed record. Here you go, taken away. Fastest Australian female on salt, 377 kilometers an hour. So yeah, she's not messing around.
She's moving. Yeah.
But and they just had a really impressive setup with their car, and they were like a really professional team. Not to imply that anyone else isn't professional, but they just they were there, and they were really serious about trying to set a record and do what they had to do. So that was quite impressive. But there was it was just a really the types of characters out there were like there were some really interesting guys and girls, just really like folks that are out there that are and I don't know if that picture up. Yeah, so the pic that Luke's just put up of the Prospector, that's part of I think a 3-car team, which is
that's a Kenworth truck to my eyes, but it
is
laying rail. And,
laying rail, exactly. In fact, if you go to my Instagram, you'll be able to find a little video of that thing going past. And so that thing was unbelievable. Like, it's really hard to describe that in what that's like in person, but that thing was phenomenal. It was just one of the kind of weird and wonderful kind of vehicles that was out there.
And there was a one that struck my imagination because I nearly had a heart attack when I saw your photos. An Alfa Romeo Sprint, like the one that's sitting behind you.
Exactly.
Probably the least. Okay, I know this because I learned to drive them. My dad has one. It's our track car. It is not a fast car in a straight line. It falls apart at the hint of salt and rust and anything like that. So categorically, you'd say it's probably the least suited car to salt lake racing. And how did it go?
I actually don't think it ran in the end. It was almost like it was a fairly fresh build. Like all good Alphas, they're great when they're just finished. Chuck. That's it. Keep it fresh. Scroll on down. That Alpha was really nicely set up. It almost looked as if it was a track car at some point in its life, and whether they changed the gearing ratio or whatever they had to do for Salt Lake racing.
And Andrew, it definitely doesn't have a 1200 box in it. Put it that way.
I don't know what that means, but I'm going to laugh because it's an Alpha.
That's the close
Anyway.
ratio. So in sort of, for those that don't know, like in the Alpha, kind of the SUDs in the 33 world, the gearbox that came with the 1200cc engine, the smallest engine, has the closest ratios. So the sweet spot of a SUD really is to pair the biggest engine with the closest ratio gearbox, and you kind of get a pretty good little hills and track car. But it tops out at about 150 k's an hour. So it's not suited. 170, 160, 170, but not suited to the salt. But
there is no audio on that, I don't think. But to give this,
what's that picture with the guys there? And
I'll explain the guy in a minute. That's
his
name is Animal.
Oh wow!
But that is,
look at that.
That video there is that thing, which you can just tell. Like, it looks like something from Thunderbirds. Like, it's just a really weird and wonderful thing. I think it is essentially just a chassis with whatever else kind of glued onto it.
Can we get to Animal? Can we talk about Animal? So I'm going to do my best to describe it. You've got what looks like some sort of belly take racer. Then you've got a guy in thongs, and is he in his underwear, or are they really short shorts?
It could technically be 3 thongs in that picture, I think. Well, first of all, that's not my photograph. That's just a fairly famous photo of him.
Okay. Yeah.
But keep your description going, and I'll...
So we have a gentleman, white Salt Racer t-shirt. As I said, can't tell if it's a second pair of thongs or if it's just some short shorts. But either way, there's a lot of thigh showing. We're having a sort of a muscle. We're in a muscle pose, and there's a mullet and a large handlebar moustache. He looks like that's a big mood. That is a big mood.
Yeah, lots of energy in that picture. Animal was, and I actually tried to get a photograph of kind of a bit of a portrait of him, but he's very very sought after man. He's basically I don't know if he's the overall, like, he's obviously part of an organizing team, but he's kind of like the face of
the face of Salt Lake racing.
Yeah, in Australia, and he's just known as Animal, and he's always, if he's getting around, he's always in very short shorts, if not no shirt or whatever. And he was the guy driving from the start line to the finish line to make sure that this is sorted out. And he was, when I did see him, when I was trying to pull him aside to get a photograph, it was in the middle of the timing issues, so I didn't really want to interrupt him. But I say this with all due respect, he is a definition of a creature. Like, he's just a really interesting guy. I'd love to have a chat with him. And he was at the.
Can we get Animal on the podcast? If anyone is watching that could link us up with Animal, and he can actually tell us about Salt Lake racing, like all of the stuff we're sort of hypothesizing about. Would be fascinating to actually learn about it.
He would be far better informed than I am, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Dad was telling me about him before. So Dad had been to the event maybe 4 or 5 years in a row, or at least 5 times over the course of the last 10 years or so. And he was telling me about Animal. and he's like, you got to see this guy, you know, rah, rah. And he's definitely stands out from the crowd. You know which one he is, that's for sure.
Wonderful. Oh, I love that. That's great. That's great. What an event. What a I think I'm guilty of this just as much as anyone else, but I think we kind of become quite insular in our own worlds, and be that like a Malala world or a Cars and Coffee world or a hills driving world or an Italian car world. And you kind of forget that there is a whole new world of cars and motorsport out there that we know absolutely nothing about. It's like, it might as well be aviation. Like, it's so different and so new that, it's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the thing that appealed to me about it is the fact that it's, and without knowing very much about it, I'd always been fascinated by like Bonneville and that kind of thing, and you know, you watch things like the World's Fastest Indian, and I was always a big fan and followed the thrust SSC kind of land speed record kind of attempt, or whatever it's turned out to be now. And this kind of thing, you know, I guess you've got it in your backyard, so to speak. You know, you can get there. Yes, it's 6-hour drive, but you know, the fact that you can get there, it's really not. You don't have to travel, you know, to Bonneville. Yeah, and the fact that it's such a popular event, and it's not. And it's funny. Luke's bringing up some pictures of another fairly famous. I was going to say, you know, things like I don't know if Donald Campbell ever ran at Lake Gairdner. Lake Air, sorry. Things like you know, it's just called the Bluebird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Once again, nowhere near up to scratch with the knowledge about that kind of thing, but you know, that was something that was pretty prolific, and it was British, wasn't it? And they brought it over to Australia to Lake Air.
And then they paraded it. They brought it to Lake Air to run, and then after I think it broke the record, they paraded it around definitely South Australia and maybe not more. I think it's in Dutton Garage. There's pictures of it on the back of a truck going through like Bridgewater up in the Adelaide Hills.
There's also the wheel at Dutton's as well.
The wheel at Dutton's, yeah.
I think it's actually like my grandparents used to own the Marion Hotel, and I think there's a picture of the Bluebird when they stayed there. I think they stayed at the Marion Hotel.
Wow.
And there's a family photo of that car and some other Salt Lake racing cars that used to stay at the hotel during like racing season. I've got to dig up from somewhere.
That's one to share. We need to see that.
Yeah, I got to find that one. I think it's actually got one with Mum sitting in it or something. Like I think it was Bluebird, something like that.
Ridiculous.
Some
ridiculous
Salt Lake car. I remember seeing the photo a long time ago, but one day.
Yeah, it's
I'm keen to get up there. I was a bit devil I couldn't go actually.
Yeah. We need to do it again.
You can talk, if you talk that up.
Yeah, so I think this year was cancelled for obvious COVID kind of reasons. But they tend to announce whether it's going to happen or not. They tend to know what's happening with the moon and you know the water level and things like that. They tend to fairly, I think, towards kind of October, November kind of period as to whether it will go on the next year. And I think this year was 20 years or maybe 25 years of the event.
It's supposed to be 25.
Yeah. So when the event's when it's kind of scheduled, you know, these teams obviously start to get the ball rolling and get the event kind of happening. So I think like Bryce and I organised it. I just booked some leave and we kind of just winged the actual getting there because really we thought we'd get there on a Thursday, come back on a Saturday or a Sunday. 30th anniversary this year, which I'm sure that would have been huge, but also it would just make next year even bigger.
Yeah.
If it goes ahead, which I don't see why it wouldn't. I think as things are starting to relax over here, I don't see how being in remote South Australia on a salt lake is really a COVID issue.
The most interesting thing I need to leave in a second, so I do apologize for that. But yeah, it's funny you say about how COVID rules sometimes don't necessarily relate to motorsport. I was at Snetterton last week taking some photos, and technically it was a no spectator day. And had kind of entered as a competitor, which got me in the gate, and I was taking photos. And I was a good 10-minute walk from anyone. I was standing on my own in the middle of a field at a corner. And one of the poor track marshals drove his car all the way over to tell me that it wasn't safe for me to stand on my own 15 minutes walk from anyone, but I was free to go and take photos in the pits and paddock back where everyone was. You just kind of go, okay, the guy's just, doing his job and implementing the rules, but sometimes they don't quite fall the way that they should. So, anyway, boys, I do apologize. I do need to split, but don't let this end the podcast. Please keep chatting. Please keep chatting.
We're good. It'll be awkward with us with one mic. We'll kind of have to be.
Yeah.
You can just get really close. You can get really close.
I was going to say just before you go there, bear in mind for the Dry Lake Racing Association with their 2020 event cancelled, I'm pretty sure they would have spent a bit of money on merch too, leading up to the event, given it was a 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
So if they jump on their website and have a look, and there might be something that takes your fancy and get it and help them out to cover the cost of merch, which I'm sure happens.
Yeah, it needs to be said, even though you may not have been, it's definitely a badge of honor to have a DLRA sticker on the back of your car. It's pretty. Yeah. It's pretty you definitely give each other that nod. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, boys.
All right, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Thank you, boys. Sportscar Safari podcast. Follow us on the channels at Sportscar Safari, sportscarsafari.com/shop. Usual places, and we'll see you next week.
Felix's this week's handle is
Chuck Jägermeister. Not really worth a follow. Just lots of just aviation and bikes and pics of my kid, basically. So